The Snow Queen, Part 5. The Little Robber Girl. The carriage rolled into a dark forest. Like a blazing torch, it shone in the eyes of some robbers. They could not bear it. That's gold! That's gold! They cried. They sprang forward, seized the horses, killed the little postilions, the coachman, and the footman, and dragged little Gerda out of the carriage. How plump and how tender she looks, just as if she'd been fattened with nuts, cried the old robber woman, who had a long, bristly beard and long brows that hung down over her eyes. She looks like a fat little lamb. What a dainty dish she will be. As she said this, she drew out her knife, a dreadful, flashing thing. Ouch! The old woman howled. At just that moment, her own little daughter had bitten her ear. The little girl, whom she carried on her back, was as wild and reckless creature. You beastly brat, her mother exclaimed, but it kept her from using that knife on Gerda. She shall play with me, said the little robber girl. She must give me her muff and that pretty dress she wears, and sleep with me in my bed. And she again gave her mother such a bite that the woman hopped and whirled around in pain. All the robbers laughed and shouted, See how she dances with her brat. I want to ride in the carriage, the little robber girl said, and ride she did, for she was too spoiled and headstrong for words. She and Gerda climbed into the carriage, and away they drove over stumps and stone into the depths of the forest. The little robber girl was no taller than Gerda, but she was stronger and much broader in the shoulders. Her skin was brown, and her eyes coal black, almost sad in their expression. She put her arms around Gerda and said, They shan't kill you unless I get angry with you. I think you must be a princess. No, I'm not, said little Gerda, and she told all about that what had happened to her, and how much she cared for little Kai. The robber girl looked at her gravely, gave a little nod of approval, and told her, Even if I should get angry with you, they shan't kill you, because I'll do it myself. Then she dried Gerda's eyes and stuck her own hands into Gerda's soft, warm muff. The carriage stopped at last, in the courtyard of the robber's castle. The walls of it was cracked from bottom to top. Crows and ravens flew out of every loophole, and bulldogs, huge enough to devour a man, jumped high in the air. But they did not bark, for that was forbidden. In the middle of the stone paved, smoky old hall, a big fire was burning. The smoke of it drifted up to the ceiling, where it had to find its own way out. Soup were boiling in a big cauldron, and hares and rabbits were roasting on the spit. Tonight you shall sleep with me and all my little animals, the robber girl said, after they had had something to eat and drink. They went over to a corner that was strewn with rocks and straw. Over sticks and perches around the bedding roosted nearly 100 pigeons. They seemed to be asleep, but they stirred just a little when the two little girls came near them. They are all mine, said the little robber girl. She seized the one that was nearest to her, held it by the legs, and shook it until it flapped its wings. Kiss it, she cried, and thrust the bird into Gerda's face. Those two are the wild rascals, she said, pointing high up the wall to a hole bared with wooden sticks. Rascals of the woods they are, and they would fly away in a minute if they were not locked up. And here is my old sweetheart Bay, she said, pulling at the horns of a reindeer that was tethered by a shiny copper ring around his neck. We have to keep a sharp eye on him, or he will run away from us too. Every single night I'll tickle his neck with my knife blade, for he's afraid of that. From the hole in the wall, she pulled a long knife and rubbed it against the reindeer's neck. After the poor animal had kicked up its heels, the robber girl laughed and pulled Gerda down into the bed with her. Are you going to keep that knife in bed with you? Gerda asked, and looked a little frightened. I always sleep with my knife, the little robber girl said. You can never tell what may happen. But let's hear again what you told me before about little Kai and about why you are wandering through the wide world. Gerda told the story all over again, while the wild pigeons cooed in their cage overhead and the tame pigeons slept. The little robber girl clasped one arm around Gerda's neck, gripped her knife in the other hand, fell asleep, and snored so that one could hear her. But Gerda could not close her eyes at all. She did not know whether she was to live or whether she was to die. The robbers sat around their fire, singing and drinking, and the old robber woman was turning somersaults. It was a terrible sight for a little girl to see. Then the wood pigeon say, "Cuckoo! We have seen little Kay. A white hen was carrying his sled, and Kai sat in the Snow Queen's sleigh. They swooped low over the trees where we lay in our nest. The Snow Queen blew upon us, and all the young pigeons died except of us. Cuckoo!" "What is that you are saying up there?" cried Gerda. "Where was the Snow Queen going? Do you know anything about it?" "She was probably bound for Lapland, where they always have snow and ice. Why don't you ask the reindeer who is tethered beside you?" "Yes, there is ice and snow in that glorious land," the reindeer told her. "You can prance about freely across the great glittering fields. The Snow Queen has her summer tent there, but her stronghold is a castle up nearer the North Pole on the island called Spitsbergen." "Oh, Kai, little Kai," Gerda sighed. "Lie still," said the robber girl, "or I'll stick my knife in your stomach." In the morning, Gerda told her all that the wood pigeons had said. The little robber girl looked quite thoughtful. She nodded her head and exclaimed, "Leave it to me! Leave it to me!" "Do you know where Lapland is?" she asked the reindeer. "Who knows it better than I?" the reindeer said, and his eyes sparkled. "There I was born, there I was bred, and there I kicked my heels in freedom across the fields of snow." "Listen," the robber girl said to Gerda. "As you see, all the men are away. Mother is still here, and here she'll stay. But before the morning is over, she will drink out of that big bottle, and then she usually dozes off for a nap. As soon as that happens, I will do you a good turn." She jumped out of bed, rushed over and threw her arms around her mother's neck, pulled at her beard bristles, and said, "Good morning, my dear Nanny Goat." Her mother thumped her nose until it was red and blue, but all that was done out of pure love. As soon as the mother had tipped up the bottle and dozed off to sleep, the little robber girl ran to the reindeer and said, "I have a good notion to keep you here and tickle you with my sharp knife. You're so funny when I do, but never mind that. I'll untie your rope and help you find your way outside so that you can run back to Lapland. But you must put your best leg forward and carry this little girl to the Snow Queen's palace, where her playmate is. I suppose you heard what she told me, for she spoke so loud, and you were eavesdropping." The reindeer was so happy he bounded into the air. The robber girl hoisted little Gerda on his back, carefully tied her in place, and even gave her a little pillow to sit on. "I don't do things halfway," she said. "Here, take back your fur boots, for it's going to be bitter cold. I'll keep your muff, because it's such a pretty one, but your fingers mustn't get cold. Here are my mother's big mittens, which will come right up to your elbows. Pull them on. Now your hands look just like my ugly mother's big paws." And Gerda shed happy tears. "I don't care to see you blubbering," said the little robber girl. "You ought to look pleased now. Here, take these 2 loaves of bread and this ham along, so that it won't starve." When these provisions were tied on the back of the reindeer, the little robber girl opened the door and called in all the big dogs. Then she cut the tether with her knife and said to the reindeer, "Now run." but see that you take good care of the little girl." Gerda waved her big mittens to the little robber girl and said goodbye. Then the reindeer bounded away, over stumps and stones, straight through the great forest, over swamps and across the plains, as fast as he could run. The wolves howled, the ravens shrieked, and kashoo, kashoo, the red streaks of light rippled through the heavens with a noise that sounded like sneezing. "Those are my old northern lights," said the reindeer. "See how they flash!" And on he ran, faster than ever, by night and day. The loaf were eaten, and the whole ham was eaten, and there they were in Lapland.